Welcome to another edition of the 80th District, coming to speak to Agriculture Secretary Russell Redding here at the 104th Pennsylvania Farm Show in Harrisburg. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much
for
see you. Yes, it's likewise.
Happy New Year.
And I'm looking forward to, I'm going to do a little plug.
Yeah.
The March 20th, you're coming back to the district for our annual breakfast at the Bistro in Martinsburg. So the farmers back home, they do seem to have a great amount of respect for you and appreciate you making the time for that.
That's mutual. I mean, you hosted it last year in May, and I was overwhelmed with the turnout, the response. You were positive, notwithstanding all the challenges we have in agriculture. You were wonderful. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Look forward to it.
And as we sit and you talk about the challenges, we sit in front of this great farm bill from this past year, 16 pieces of legislation. When I talk to members of my Pennsylvania Farm Bureau back in Blair County, and they say that it was probably the most significant change in agriculture in Pennsylvania in the last decade or longer. Yeah. What does that mean to you to be in that position that you're in, that you could make that much difference?
Well, I'm honored and to be the secretary and to be championing agriculture, but it takes a lot of great people. We've got to do things here with the governor and the legislature in a bipartisan way. What I'm most proud of is that when you look at the Farm Bill, we have changed both the definition of agriculture, because we've got things in there that are, special crops to Pennsylvania. It includes the hardwoods, right? We've got the urban centers, we've got small meat processors. Completely changed that, because everything else had been sort of channeled by a single appropriation versus this comprehensive approach. So I'm proud of the Farm Bill, the only state in the nation with one. Yeah. It's wonderful. It's a good feeling. Thanks for your support.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to know that I came in at a time where I could make that much of a difference as one vote. We need 102 in the House, 26 in the Senate, and then the governor's support. Yeah. Some of them are more immediate in their impact. Some are more long-term. Yeah. Which ones are you? Can you pick out one or two that you're the most excited about?
I think there's a couple. I would put two on that list. Number one, what we did with the small meat processors, right? We hear it all the time. People want to have, farm to table. They want to have access to meat processing locally, and there's this whole sort of consolidation that's occurred over the last sort of 15, 20 years. But there's a resurgence in people wanting to know who's feeding them, right? And I think it's a great thing. But it's caused some challenges of access for meat processing. So we have 15 projects in 13 counties as one example. The one we announced this week, equally as important and proud of, it's on the business planning side. And there's not a farm that was at your breakfast that isn't in some level transition, right? Always worried about it. Yep. That could be simple business planning, it could be an enterprise, it could be transitional, generationally, it could be
diversification.
That is in the new grant program, and I'm proud of that just because for the very first time, we can say regardless of where you are in the state, regardless of why you're transitioning or planning, we can support you. I think it's a really important statement about what we value.
Guess what you don't get to do though? You don't get to take a breath. So what's Farm Bill 2? What's the sequel at this movie time of the year where everybody's worried about what's the next great thing?
Well, I can tell you, I am hopeful, and we've made this case to the governor's office about there's a lot of momentum.
Keep it going.
Keep it going. I mean, whether it's the exact form we have it, I don't know. But I can tell you that every grant program that we've opened, from youth and education to conservation, has been oversubscribed. So it tells me there's a need, and it tells me we're responding to the things that people need and want. So let's keep it going.
Keep it going. Yeah. And the resurgence of dairy, there has been some improvements in that industry. Where do you see the next year? Because where we were a year ago and where we are today, there's a difference. Right. And do we see that difference continuing?
In the near term, yes. And I think there's a couple of factors to that. One is we talk about the market all the time, right? And 2.5 years ago, when we started on that downward slide, we were just overwhelmed with product. The market simply couldn't absorb that, right? You look at the world stock on dairy stuff, it's been worked off. The national stock for inventory has been worked off. So we're now at a point where the market's sort of really indicating what the value of the product is, so you see an uptick. We're in a pretty good place. I mean, we're in a better spot today than we've been in the last 2.5 years. Forecast for 2020 looks good, right? We've got the USMCA from the president has signed and negotiated.
Thank you to our Congress, yes.
Congress, now we need to get the Senate to get it done, right? We've got China, who's at least interested in the phase one. Right. We've got a USMCA has a dairy provision in Canada. We finally broke into that market, got back into the market actually in Canada, right? So I think all of those are great indicators. I'll never give up on the consumer here about what they buy. Dairy consumption is up. We need to get the fluid milk consumption back up, right? But I'm still positive about dairy and dairy consumption, consumers and dairy in Pennsylvania. So
the reason I feel excited just sitting here talking to you is after the luncheon that we had today and the speakers that spoke. Imagine the opportunities is the slogan for the farm show. What they're talking about and where their imaginations are taking this industry are off the charts.
It's inspiring.
It is inspiring.
Right? I've met those folks across the state, and they put them on the stage. You know, no idea what they're going to say, right? They were amazing, right? Every single one, from what they're looking to do with sunflowers and that tourism component to what you do in food rescue and school. Just a really nice story. It's the piece for me when you talk about dairy. Is there opportunity there? Yes. Does it look different than today? Yes. But great people, good minds, and if we can support that through the Farm Bill and our work in the public space, that's a good feeling.
We love what we're doing together.
It's a great partnership.
It is a great partnership.
Thank
you very much,
well
Secretary Redding.
Thank you.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us, folks, in the 80th District. We'll talk soon.